Okay, so this is the 2025 Toronto Grand Prix Women's 100 meter freestyle. This is Heat 2. We're looking at two swimmers, Yolanda Zhang in lane 3 and Kayla Houlder in lane 5. Okay, let's watch the race and then we're going to get into it. Okay, so let's take a look at Yolanda first, okay? Coming right back to the start. Let's get the music off. Okay, so lane 3. Let's check out where we are on the start. I think a pretty good body position here, hard to tell from the perspective, but looking good from what we can see. Let's see that again. Let's see what we can see if what fires first. We want to be looking for that back leg moving first, and it does. We saw that heel just twitch. Not twitch, you pushed. So great. The thing that should fire first is firing first. Extension on that back leg, nice. Extension on that front leg, nice. Little bit, you know what? That's a little interesting. Let's see that in half speed. Very smooth. It looked for a minute like you were kind of flopping into the water, and yet that just might be a perspective issue because we can see that your entry is very small. We want a small entry. Bit of a splash, so it could be maybe a bit tenser in the core. We want to follow our arc out and down and through. Just looks like you could have a bit more tension, maybe. Something to think about, something to play with. By the looks of it, pretty decent underwater kick. It's a little knee flicky. Right, look at how much your knee is bending versus now after the next couple of frames. Take a look and see if we can see any belly or hip motion. We see some of the hip motion. Okay, we also do see some belly motion. Okay, so might just be making stuff up, but maybe a bit too much in the knee regardless. Sorry, let's come back here. I want to see the breakout again. Pretty good, pretty smooth entry or exit. Yeah, I like that. Let's go full speed here for a bit. Okay, well, let's not do that anymore. Don't like this. Let's see. 1 stroke, 2 stroke, and breathing stroke. Something I like to advocate about is establishing strokes. The first 3 strokes of every length should be 3 non-breathing strokes that we set our pace at, we set our stroke correctly, we set our hold, we set everything, okay? It is easier to go from 100% to 0% compared to 0% to 100%. It's easier to stop than it is to start something, anything, especially forward motion under pressure. If you start the race at a slower speed, not the race, if you start any given length at a slower speed than you're capable of, you would have to fight to get to a speed that you are capable of then, right? Talking about like maximum velocities potential. If you start a race at maximum potential velocity, well, damn, it's easy to go slower than that, right? And we all know that we're probably going to get slower as a race goes on, so our work is cut out for us. We don't need to try and go slower. We're going to get slower probably, right? Or we're going to have to increase effort to maintain that high velocity. First 3 strokes can be that establishment. If we take a breath, any breath, no matter how good, it is going to be an obstruction to us. And an obstruction slows us. So taking a breath right there, I'd love to see that not occur. I'd love to see you get 3 solid strokes in where you are going at the pace that you've decided you want to be operating at, and then get your breath in, right? This breath isn't helping you. This breath isn't doing anything for the oxygen in your system. You just started 3 seconds ago. So you don't need this air. If you need to get air out here, get the air out there. But, that could be your first breath. Wonderful. I mean, I think that's like your 5th stroke anyways, so you could have it even earlier. But think about that maybe. Getting those establishing strokes. Overall, stroke rate though, looking nice. You're powering, especially on that right arm we can see right now easily. You're holding the water pretty darn well. You're really shoving through the water. Flip. Looked good to me. Short on the underwater there, right? Let's try and extend that out. We only have 100 meters. This is the common, fight between distance people and sprinters. It's I don't know. It's not really a fight, but we only have 100 meters to work with here. Every opportunity potentially given to us, we want to take advantage of. If a distance person was doing an 800-meter freestyle and they did a 5-meter pullout, I'd go, well, that's theoretically more acceptable, even though it's really not. Because they have however many turns, short or long course, whatever, however many turns they have many more to succeed at. We only get the 1 turn. So let's extend that as far as we can. Let's work on the underwater. And of course, when I'm talking about extending as far as we can, that is in the parameters of extending as far as we can at speed, right? We don't want to do a 14-meter underwater if it means that our underwater is slow. But if we can take that 5-meter underwater and turn it into even 6 meters of an underwater, but just as fast as the 5 meters underwater, well then congratulations to us, we've gone farther at speed. This breath, whoa. Okay, those 2 breaths back. Let's watch full speed here. Sorry, I went back a little bit far, but pay attention to the pace that you look like you're going at right now. And coming up, that. Did you see that slow down there? Let's watch that again. Full speed. Slow. That little bit of a slowdown. Okay, that's where the breath is a fear. We don't want to be breathing as much as we can. Here's the thing, you have, 10 meters to go coming into the wall? Try and not be breathing coming into the wall as much as you can, because again, it's inefficiencies, no matter how good you are, and I think that we can see some, we definitely saw a major breath there affect your overall speed. If it's visible by the human eye, that's worth of noting, let alone going into frame-by-frame slow motion. Get that slowdown is really nice low-hanging fruit that we can improve the finishes of our races on. Like, there's easy time there, right? All it is making a decision to reach this 10-meter, 12-meter, 15-meter point coming into the final of our 100 meters and going, I'm about to experience a lot of pain by holding my breath, but fine, I'm going to do that anyways. It requires practice. Like, doing this in practice is something you need to do. You can't just go into a race and suddenly start doing this. Thing is, right, you do that at the 5-meter mark. You've gone, I'm heads down now. But if you watch more of these recordings from just even this Grand Prix, there's a number of times where I'm talking to swimmers about, how effective a move is. Well, a move takes time to bear fruit, as it were. And it's usually, at least 3 meters, more likely 5 meters for a move to start actually affecting our speed, right? It takes us time to get things warming up. Swimming is slow, right? The fastest swimmers in the world are swimming at, basically a bit faster than a brisk walk. So, suddenly increasing effort, increasing efficiency, you got to let that kind of play out over space and time. you might have been moving a bit faster on that last stroke, but you weren't moving faster really in the middle of those final 5 meters. If you made that move, 10 meters or here, head down, going for it, you would see the increase of velocity here and all the way in, and you would have maybe eaten up some distance on the girls there, gotten a slightly faster time. And the fun thing about swimming is that you do get to apply tactics and strategies like that. And they do have outcomes that are noticeable. Sometimes they don't always work, but no tactic is perfect. No strategy is perfect. But not employing them versus employing them is something we should be playing with. One final thing, looking at the finish. Good decision on making that your last stroke, but I think you pull up a little bit. All right, your head maybe is coming up. You're looking to look. I'd like you to be really in a near streamline position, like a one-armed streamline position. I'd really like you to drive that head down. Hard to see on this side because you're reaching with your right and we are on your left viewing you, but if there is space in between the side of your head above your ear, on your right side, and your bicep on your right arm, if there's space between that, then water is entering that cavity while you're reaching out, and it's getting tied up and it's drag. So it's like you're hitting the brakes right at the end of the race when it's 100 freestyle. Do you want to go a tenth of a second faster? If that was all I could promise you, right? Take a tenth off of your 100 freestyle. Hopefully the answer is yes, please. Well, I don't know how much time you could take off with a slightly better finish, but I bet you it could be something like a tenth of a second, if not more. Maybe it's a bit less. Well, it's just deciding on how that finish occurs. But overall, really liked that. Let's come over to Kayla. So, right back to the start. Let's really get that frame by frame. It's looking for what moves first. I think your foot just moved there. Nope, I'm making it up. If we had higher definition, that'd be nice. But we don't, so we deal. Holy heck, where are we going? Okay, there's the shove. Your back leg does look like it's firing first, so great job. We can wait and keep clicking through frame by frame until we see it because it's obvious. Yeah. You did fire that back leg first. Great. The head lift came a little bit after, the little lift up that we're doing. So long as we're firing that back leg first, I'm good. Liking the angle on that front leg, back leg, great extension. Front leg, great extension. We've been working on dives. It starts out really nicely, but we're just looking at that, this onward, right? Our hip going down versus following through that angle of arc. I like this kick. You can see hip motion. We can see like trunk motion. I do think that because let's watch full speed. Maybe a bit bigger, Slow motion is great, but sometimes it also sort of hides some things. I think that's a really good underwater, to be honest. And if we're doing something great, let's do more of that great thing. I would have loved to see, for the quality that underwater was, would have loved to see a little bit longer. Great breakout, by the looks of it. Let's do that again. Nice. Yeah, great breakout. Let's look at the other arm, the left arm though, because that looks like a good stroke. And that left arm just looked a little fast there. You feel me? Where it just kind of, your right arm took a stroke and your left arm almost just like in a race to get its stroke out. And were you slipping? I don't think you were necessarily slipping, but it wasn't maybe as good a hold as you are used to. Nice. I think that's the perfect time to be taking that first breath. You did 3 establishing strokes and then you got your first breath in. Great. I think that was a little weird looking. Yeah, you were taking a breath. You knew you were taking a breath. Interesting, I don't see it as much happening on that first breath. Maybe it's happening a little, but this one is certainly more obvious. We know we're about to take a breath because check out our hold. It's completely changed, and look at where you're moving frame to frame. You're almost actually getting acceleration because of the reach occurring rather than the pull. Now, we're going to get forward motion because of, in part, our reach, but most of our forward motion is coming from our pull. You're moving forward, you're moving forward, you're moving forward, you're moving forward, you're moving up and not moving forward as much. And now we're kind of moving forward again. But we're still kind of in a bit of a pause. Now our left arm is finally, and it takes like 2 stroke cycles to be getting back into it. That was a weird one. I think let's watch this full speed. We could see that little hiccup. You get other breaths in on your right arm and we're not seeing the same hiccup occur. But that hiccup hurt us, right? Fastest part of any swim is the dive. Second fastest part of any swim is the underwater after the dive. Third fastest part of any swim should be the underwater after a wall. And the fourth fastest swim part of any swim should be the swim. You are coming off of, in this first length, the fastest, then the second fastest portions of the entire race, the dive and the underwater after the dive. You're traveling at, as close as you can basically get while swimming to your highest potential velocity. And that little hiccup at your second breath, what was it, 6th or 7th stroke in to your first 50, it slowed you down that much. Our potential velocity, right, it's like, right at the top here, coming across because we're in the dive. It slows down a bit because we're in the water now, moving through a thicker medium, and now we're swimming, right? So we're even slower than our underwater, but instead of kind of riding this, slightly degrading speed or velocity throughout the 50 and then hopefully getting a little bit up again before we drag down on the way back, we're high, we're getting low, we're getting low, and then there was a shocking drop that we then have to spend more energy to recover from. And it'd be nice to have a drawing tool in this moment so that I could illustrate this rather than you following my mouse across the screen a little bit here. But if we don't have that drop where we are then having to fight and waste more energy in that opening 50, we might, this is the highest potential velocity that we're ever going to reach. The first 50, we might end at, this kind of a velocity. But if we have to dip below that to fight up, the best case scenario is that we reach that same initial velocity. It's still a slower 50 overall because we were traveling slower for a portion of it. But hopefully we get back up to that velocity. The reality is that we probably don't. The reality is we probably end up at a lower velocity at that 50 meter mark than we could have if we didn't have that delay happen to us. So, something to consider. Hard to say, oh, this one thing occurred and then it didn't occur the rest of the time. But that's where execution comes from, right? That's the importance of execution. Short underwater here. It was pretty fast underwater, but let's try and extend that out. Even if we get an extra 6th meter, maybe 7th meter, at the same speed, that's better, right? Better than not. Let's watch full speed again. I think your stroke rate might just be a little bit slow. I'd like to work with you maybe on doing some higher than we are used to, higher than we want to stroke rates. Because you look long and strong and easy, but you're looking a little bit too easy. I think that was another hiccupy thing. Let's watch. I think that was another hiccupy thing. Let's see this. Let's go frame by frame again. It's on the next breath on your right, I think. Not entirely sure. The last one was more obvious. That one certainly wasn't. No. Maybe I'm seeing things. Like, you look like you're powering here, but it's just, I'd love to see a bit more zest. And I'd also like to see less breathing going on in the last 10, 15 meters of the race. Last 10, 15 meters of the race, we shouldn't be that concerned. I mean, I understand, trying to fight the feeling of lactic acid, but guess lactic acid is going to be in our system. Like, by the time it's there, it's there. It's not. It's happened. That chemical reaction has occurred. It's not going to be fought off by getting more oxygen into your system inside of the time frame while we're continuing to work, right? We need to flush our system and recover to get that out of our system. So it's, here, deciding no more breathing, or, sorry, this is happening. Sorry. But here, going, that was the last breath, and now I'm heads down, driving for the wall, making sure that it's, an increased stroke rate even maybe. Good touch, honestly. Like, that was full extension. I don't think that there's much, there's no waste on that. I think that was a pretty good touch. But yeah, the last 10 meters, driving for the wall and going, I don't care how bad it's going to hurt me. I'm already in pain. Nothing I do to potentially, quote unquote, like alleviate the pain, breathing, is going to actually fix the pain. All that me breathing now is going to do is two things. One, it's going to make sure that I don't suffer more later, i.e. post-race. And two, it's going to slow me down actively in race. So in regard to problem number one, that's future you's problem. Don't worry about future you. Future you is not your concern in this moment while we're in the race. It's not your concern in this moment. Who cares about future you? 20 seconds from now, you can worry about that. But you right now should be worried about what decisions am I taking that's going to slow down present me. Taking breaths is going to slow me down. It's not just, avoiding negative actions, taking breaths, but it can also be, right, let's really drive, let's increase stroke rate a little bit. What happens if I start slipping just a teensy bit more, but my stroke rate increases? If you have a 45 stroke rate per minute, that's literally how much work can you do. You get to do 45 pulls at the strength that you're able to pull in 60 seconds. Compare that to even a 50 stroke rate. You are now, so long as you can maintain hold at relatively or the same level, if you have 50 stroke rate per minute, you get to do 50 pulls instead of 45. You get to do 5 more actions that are work. That lets you move more, that lets you put more energy into the race. So coming up into the finish, right, driving for the wall, increasing stroke rate, if we lose our hold a little bit, okay, that might be within an acceptable parameter, right? If it goes from a 100, call it a 100% personal efficiency, right? The best hold that you can do. And it drops to a 95% hold on potential efficiency. Is that 5% going to be such a loss of hold that our increased stroke rate, our increased mechanical work is no longer actually an advantage? Maybe, but also maybe not. If our hold drops by 10%, is it too much of a drop in efficiency so that the extra work we're putting in actually ends up being less work? I don't know. This is where personal experimentation comes into play, right? This is where working on higher stroke rates than you're comfortable with comes into play. You know, can you get to 60 stroke rate per minute? Can you get to a 65 stroke rate per minute, right? Even at the sacrifice of all of your hold, right? And then once you can sort of go, this is how fast my arms need to spin to develop some kind of stroke rate, and some kind of cadence, then maybe you kind of reverse engineer it and you go, all right, I establish a really high stroke rate for me, and now I'm working on getting a hold worked into that high stroke rate, rather than maybe approaching it from a forward engineering way of, I have a good hold, now I try and increase my stroke rate. The problem can be come at from either angle, and it's definitely worth playing with. But nice swim from both you girls. Great.